There was one talk, I was like 13, and my mom was like, what do you want to do? And I was like, what do you mean? I get a choice? Like, I thought you guys were just going to send me to like the community college to be like a welder or like a plumber. When she's like, yeah, no, you can pick what you want to do. And I was like, oh, okay, well, I like those MacDog videos and I see a lot of names in the credits. I'd love to be a snowboard filmer. And she's like, you sure you don't want to do that as like a hobby? And I was like, no, like I want to do it for real.
Well, guys, I'm sitting down today with Aaron Leyland. It is an absolute pleasure to be sitting down with Aaron. A big inspiration for me, for my work, and I'm just always in awe of what Aaron does. And so it's just an absolute pleasure to be talking with you today and just hearing your experiences.
Oh, sure. Well, hopefully I can tell you something of interest. I don't know.
All right. So for the people that don't know you or possibly getting to know you, I would just like you to share a little bit more about who you are and what it is that you do.
How would I describe this? I mean, I'm a filmmaker and photographer, I guess, with a specialization in winter sports, whether that's snowboarding, skiing, snowmobiling. Yeah, that would probably be my main thing. I spend a lot more time behind a camera in the snow than I do in any other season, and it is my favorite thing to do. I really enjoy being in the mountains with my buddies and with cameras, and even if it's a fun day, I'm never not bringing a camera out. Pretty much, I'm just addicted to like documenting things, so I'm just stuck in that role now, and I love it. It would feel really weird for me if I didn't have a camera with me any day in the mountains. Or I don't know, even like I'll walk to the coffee shop with my daughter, and if I don't have the little point and shoot with me, I do feel a little bit weird just relying on my iPhone for those moments, but yeah, does the job too, I guess.
That's awesome. So what came first, the winter sports, or did photography actually come first for you?
Probably, I think they both probably kind of came in and around at the same time. I started snowboarding in 1997, like at a ski hill, like where I actually went up Mount Washington on Vancouver Island, and snowboarding definitely came first, and then I got really stoked on all the videos, all the MacDog videos, and watching the credits, and just saw the names on the credits, and I was like, oh, I wonder what it's like to be one of those guys. Like, it'd be pretty cool to have a camera and go bomb around and film all this stuff. And so once I got to high school, I just started taking a lot of like camera classes, media, video production, black and white photography, and then I just kind of married the two. I'd always have like the Pentax black and white setup from grade 10 high school, or like my uncle's like oddly enough Pentax High 8 video camera that I borrowed for like probably like 3 years before I got my own. And yeah, and then it was just kind of like any project I could do where I could combine going snowboarding with doing like a school project. It was just automatically like snowboard projects. And that even through film school, like I would get like pretty marks on some projects because I would make it into a snowboard project, even though it probably shouldn't have been. But I think it ended up working out, so it's all right.
That's awesome.
Anytime like I'm doing a project and I can combine it with the things that I love, I'm probably going to go the extra step, the extra mile to make it good, or to at least be happy with it. I think I can think of a few projects like, I don't know, Fujifilm hit me up last year in the going into the spring, and they're like, hey, we got this camera coming out, like, can you do something with it? And we luckily got a bunch of snow in April, and I was able to test that camera out and took it out, and it wasn't the best conditions, and it actually hurt my back really bad. Like, it was like I was like basically snowmobiling with like one arm, but I really wanted to make it good and to have that opportunity and to still have decent snow. I was like, all right, well, I'll do the best I can as a one-man band and and with one arm basically, and then try to shoot this camera and get a couple clips. So yeah, and it was fun. It wasn't like, award-winning or anything crazy, but it was just cool to kind of do that exact thing, marry the two, cameras and snow projects and try to make something cool.
Yeah, I think that's probably like the climax of every photographer's dream, especially for something you love, right?
Yeah, and the idea too is just like not every big company is excited to do anything with motorsports necessarily. So for them to be like, yeah, do whatever you want, and yeah, and we'll put it on our website, and it was cool because I don't know, in 2023, not everyone loves that motorsports, but yeah, it was cool. They let me do it, and it was a fun little gig for sure.
Yeah, I remember seeing that project. It did turn out really sweet. It would have had me fooled that you were a one-man band doing that, and even still hurt. So Yeah, it turned out really well.
Oh, thanks. Yeah. It was like the first day we went up, it was like pretty thin snow. It was still powder-ish. And then the next day, like we were like the first day we were on the glacier and we were really milking it. And then the second day we actually got like a foot of new snow and we're actually able to do some stuff. And Mike was a good test pilot for that project. He's really down to chuck and do kind of anything I tell him to do for those ones. So it's nice to have a rider like that for sure.
Oh, definitely. Yeah. Having some exceptional talent always makes the day, the shoot, everything better.
I mean, honestly, I've said it before, like when someone's like what's the recipe for like to make good stuff? And it's like, well, it's really just like, I mean, the conditions and the weather play the biggest aspect or the biggest role in it. And then just having a talented athlete, which I've been really lucky to have over the course of my career, working with a lot of the best snowboarders and sledders and that sort of thing. So that really takes like the guesswork out of it. It's really just good location, good rider, turn the camera on, hit the button, and hopefully it's in focus.
Fingers crossed.
Yeah.
So I know that you had mentioned about, like high school kind of being like a time in which like you really started to push these projects, and as well you had said film school. That was something that I kind of wanted to dive into. What was your experience with film school?
I came straight out of high school. Like if I look back on any of the stuff I would have done in school and even in film school, it would have been probably pretty cringeworthy. But what school did was it gave me the kind of technical skills that could be applied to photography or shooting motion and just how things work through kind of all levels of production, as far or like through production, post-production. We kind of learned it all. So I've never been asked on any job what my education has been. It's always just been like word of mouth or something like that, or a reference. But having that kind of training definitely helped. I didn't really spend any time on any sort of like commercial kind of set work until like maybe the last like 5 years. I went straight into the mountains and just started learning on the job. But just having that kind of technical knowledge of f-stops and shutter speeds and video codecs and what you could get away with in certain conditions with camera settings. And when I started, we shot 16mm too, so that was really cool. Probably shot 16 for the first like 3 years, and then when the HD cameras came out, like the HVX 200, that really kind of just switched instantly. No more 16 after that. But school, I think nowadays you can probably get away without it. You can learn so much on YouTube and kind of on the job kind of thing. But for me at that time, this is like also 20 years ago. Like I went to school from 02 to 04, and I was like 17 when I went to that school. So it was good for me just to have that kind of structure and learn in that kind of classroom setting. Because I'm probably like, I have like maybe like the worst attention span. I'm just all over the map when it comes to like just like doing one task at a time. So school was good for me. Learned a lot of stuff. Probably could have went another path too, but it ended up working out.
So what kind of personalities do you feel would work best within the school environment?
Yeah, like, I don't know. Like, I know for me, when I do like a personal project, like a lot of times, like I'll be working on something and then I just put it on the back burner and then I revisit it like way later or maybe never at all. Whereas like in school, you have to like actually like do it and follow it through and finish the project to get the grade. And, it just kind of establishes like work ethic and professionalism. And, I would have learned all the stuff, how to wind up cables and how to set up C-stands and lighting equipment. And then I kind of just like never used any of that stuff for like 15 years because I was always in a mountain. And only now I'm getting back into it, and it is really fun. Like I do enjoy like kind of setting up lights and doing the full production thing. But I would say probably most of my work, I'm definitely a one-man band. It would be nice to occasionally I get the odd assistant here and there or like a larger crew, but usually it's just kind of me like trying to set everything up and do it kind of quick and dirty style. So yeah, maybe I'm getting a little bit off topic, but like, yeah, like honestly, like I have like a thing of C-stands there in the corner, and like I just got those like last year, and I was just like, oh yeah, I got to put it to the right for the load, and so that the arm doesn't come down crashing down. And but I do enjoy like kind of crafting stuff, in a controlled environment, because it's pretty much the exact opposite of what I have to deal with on a daily basis with snow and the sun and shadows and your typical kind of mountain challenges, like landing's getting baked, we're losing light, so-and-so's stuck on the double track. Like in the mountains, there's so much more stuff to deal with, and before you even get to do any sort of production, kind of worrying.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of hassles, headaches that a lot of people will never know unless if they actually go to the backcountry and shoot some of this stuff, because there's some pretty wild days. And I mean, I haven't even experienced half or even a fraction of what you've experienced in the mountains. I'm sure you've had quite the wild days.
Oh yeah, no, for sure. Like there's been a lot of days where like just getting to like your location is like almost impossible, or you have to like, you know, we had plans to go to, you know, zone X and we only got to zone B, you know, like because it was so deep or whatever, right? Like or we had these big plans, we're gonna go 60 kilometers back, and then we're stuck in like the main bowl because it's 5 feet deep, and the photographer is all jammed up or something like that, which happens a lot.
Yeah, I can only imagine some of the spots that you guys get into.
Yeah, like a lot of the stuff is pretty like well traveled in Whistler area for sure. My favorite stuff is definitely going kind of off the beaten path and trying to find, just, you know, honestly, people really ride one ridge here, and it goes for 200 kilometers, so you can get onto that ridge at multiple different kind of staging areas. But there's so much terrain, one mountain range over the other way or one over the other way. We're lucky on the coast here, we don't have a ton of wildlife closures. We have some park and kind of like section 58s here in BC, here on the coast, but not as much as like Revelstoke or like any of the interior areas that would have like a lot of heli skiing. There's a ton of terrain here, and you know, you could go somewhere new every day and ride new snow. You just have to be creative. That's the fun part about it. Everyone just goes to the same spots because that's all they know, or that's all they're comfortable going to. Maybe my motivation personally is to really kind of go farther, and it's not even really that much farther. Sometimes you're just driving like 30 minutes and you're driving down a weird road that has no tracks because no one even thought about going out there. That's the fun part for me, for sure. Maybe I'm jumping ahead here, but let me know. Excitement
of adventure, yeah.
Yeah.
I love the way in which you document, like, every single time you go out and snowmobile, you capture every single aspect of it. I think that's the coolest thing, because it really involves people into the experience, into the story and the lifestyle of what it is to be a snowmobiler, what it is to be a snowboarder, to be a photographer. It just really brings people into who you are. And I think that's why your photography and who you are as a person really relates with a lot of people and connects, because you really share that adventure.
Yeah, I mean, people have told me that before, and I'm like, oh, it's like, huh, okay, wow, like, because the photo thing has really just happened from honestly being like bored in the mountains. Like, when you shoot snowboarding, you drive like an hour or two to, you know, your destination, and then you're there for like the entire day until you drive home. So I just started packing like the small kind of point and shoot camera at first, and I would just kind of document my day. I'd document the ride out there, anything that happened, you know, with the stills camera, because it's so simple and fast. And then you're at your jump, you build your jump, you have your lunch, snap photos, just because there's nothing else to do really. And then you shoot your set, you shoot your jump or your feature or whatever. That usually takes like, you know, maybe it took 2 hours to build it and 2 hours to session it, and then all of a sudden it's time to do your 90-minute ride back to the trucks, and it's getting dark. So the days go by really fast, and having the photo camera really, I don't know, it's a nice little creative outlet. Like, if I could film every little stuck and every little mishap that happens in the backcountry, I would love that. I don't think anyone's really done that in like a nicely filmed way, other than like maybe like iPhone stuff or whatever, where you're really documenting every stuck and every blown belt and all the trials and tribulations that happen in the backcountry. I think that's really interesting. I would love to do that. Unfortunately, I'm always stuck being a camera, and I usually have to break the trail for everyone, so I can't be in the back of the pack, like actually documenting it all. But if anyone wants to hire me next year to shoot BTS for them, I would definitely take that job. I would love to have a back seat and just document a film crew, and that would be like my favorite thing. Because that's what I love about the photography aspect of it, is at the end of the year I have all these photos of people eating food and like walking around in snowshoes and shoveling jumps or whatever, but I don't have a ton of action stuff because I have to film all the action. But I have kind of the sled access culture, I guess, and I love that. I love the camaraderie of it all, eating food, drinking beers afterwards. But yeah, if I didn't have the photo camera, like honestly, like yeah, you'd drive out to your zone, you'd hit your jump, you'd come back. It does start to get a little bit repetitive, and we're always rushing with the snowboard production. So to pull over as a main camera and like set up for maybe some B-roll shots or whatever, there's almost never enough time in the day if you're the main guy, I find. Yeah, being a secondary shooter or a BTS shooter on a big production would be really cool. Any producers out there listening, holler at your boy.
Gotta get that shout out, man.
Yeah. But then again, A-Cam's fun too, because you're shooting like all the main stuff and you're shooting the shots that matter, and you have that little bit of pressure on you, and I enjoy that too. You'll hear like snowboarders talk about it like when they're on like podcasts. It's called a clip high. Like when you get a shot, like you're like super fucking stoked, you know? You're like, oh my god. Like, and you know, a lot of the time I'm working with like 3 or 4 riders, and you know, as long as one person walks away with the shot in the day, like I'm good, you know, like, and I get really hyped off that. If we get no shots and they took a whole bunch of slams, then I feel for them too, because they're basically getting in like car accidents potentially every hit they go. We had a rough couple of days on our last stint, and the guys were just so banged up, and we got some shots, but you know, obviously we wanted to do, you know, kill it and do better, but it's just the way it goes. So
of course, every day has their good, every day has their bad.
Oh yeah,
can't nail them all. So.
Oh yeah, like I don't know anyone that's ever been like completely satisfied with a winter season that they've had, you know, like looking back, you know, 10 years ago we had some good winters with the good combination of like sun and snow, and we definitely got a lot of stuff, but you know, we were never completely satisfied, and we always wanted to do better the next year, and then after a few years you look back, you go, oh man, that 2012 year we did really good, or that 2013 year, man, we didn't have wind back then. Now we have all this wind and changing weather and all sorts of stuff. So.
Oh man, so many variables, it's crazy.
That's what keeps it interesting. If it was easy and you just killed it and got video part of the year every year, or movie of the year every year, you'd move on to something else, because you'd just be like, oh, I did that, it was cool, it was easy, boom, see you later.
Mm-hmm. Oh, it's so true. It's so true. So going back to the time in which you had left film school,
yep,
and just going out into, I guess you could say, the freelance workforce, or maybe you got hired. What was your process of starting to land clients once you had exited film school?
Okay, yeah, this was like, I can think back to this it's pretty clear memory, a long time ago. But I'd kind of gotten out of school, and I did a little bit of like corporate video stuff, like in like the summer and fall, and so that kind of kept me busy through the summer. Yeah, just little jobs, making videos for companies, and then that fall I'd got hit up by a production company in Whistler that was just kind of rebranding themselves. They used to be the Seymour Kids, and they were rebranding as a company called Sandbox, and that was like Kevin Sansalone, and he hit me up and was looking for a camera operator, and I think I was 19 at the time. Yeah, so that kind of took care of my first kind of winter season. No sled or anything like that at the time. I would just get sent down to like kind of events. I'd go to like all the big park shoots and that sort of things, like Transworld Team Challenge or Super Park, and I did that for a couple years. And then, as any shooter on the coast, the goal is to be a backcountry shooter and get a truck and a snowmobile and all that. So yeah, basically like worked for that company and made some contacts like with like sponsoring companies. I ended up getting to go on a few like summer shoots for Burton down in Chile, and that was key for me for sure. Like that was actually through another company. It was Mischief Films, which was a women's snowboard company. This is like 2005-ish. And the owner of that company was like, hey, Burton's looking for a shooter. Do you want to go down to Chile? It could be like good experience for you. And I was like, oh, hell yeah, I want to go on that trip for sure. And she's like, I don't know what they got for budget, but maybe it's just good experience for you. And I was like, I don't give a shit, I'll go for free. And so this was definitely like a turning point, because I was going from like a, you know, Canadian kind of snowboard scene to like working direct for the biggest snowboard company in the world, and with, you know, their global pros women's team. And I got the call from like the team managers. They're like, all right, Aaron, so we're going to Chile, but like, what's your like snowmobile like background? Like, what's your backcountry experience and everything? And you know, at this time I didn't have a sled or anything. I was like riding around Seymour and do the odd trip up to Whistler just to like ride the hill. I'd been to Baker a couple times and like snowshoot around up there, but never like snowmobiled before. So I had to do a little bit of like fabricating of my experience at the time. Many filmers have had to do this to get on trips. I think it's fake it till you make it. Yeah, I just told him I had tons of experience and that I'd been to these places, and I don't think I told him I had been on a snowmobile before, but like I said my buddy had one and he's gonna give me like the rundown on it and I'd be fine kind of thing. like overconfident. And yeah, they let me go on the trip, and I met I remember meeting Natasha Zurich in downtown Vancouver, and she just handed me like a huge box of like Kodak 16 millimeter, and I was like, wow, that's a lot of film. Like, oh wow, like, because I'm used to I was shooting for Sandbox, and we shot digi and 16, and we only shot the 16 if it was like really good light, like, and we thought that the riders were gonna land it. We kind of had it on the ration, so just to get like, I don't know, like 50 rolls of 16 handed to you at the time was like, holy, this is the real deal here.
That is aggressive. That is aggressive,
yeah.
man.
I think I'd maybe shot like maybe 10 rolls of film the previous season. I was just like, oh, let's hope the exposures are good. Let's hope the light meter's working good. That was like that. So, and then from there, I kind of would do that trip for a couple years. And I'm trying to think what kind of little side projects I'd do. You know, maybe some stuff for like Camp of Champions, but very snowboard kind of based, you know, maybe doing a few little offshoot things for the sponsors that would have supported the Sandbox videos. But then I kind of migrated on to, after the next season, Burton had an opening for a women's team filmer, and I jumped on that, and I did that for 3 or 4 years till around like 2010, like the Olympic year, and then kind of just transitioned to shooting the people that were like living around me, so like Mark Solers and Mikey Renz, and then we started doing like movie projects every year after that. So that kind of set my course for the next decade or so after that.
So just saying yes to one opportunity, whether you got paid or not, it was like the breakthrough.
Yeah, it was like, that wasn't like, none of the other guys and, you know, that were filming at the time were getting those kind of opportunities, you know? So yeah, I jumped on it for sure. It ended up being really good. I definitely didn't bill them for that trip, but Adam Moran, who was the photographer on the trip, he gave me a whole set of gear, like board, boot, binding, jacket, pant. Yeah, that was a big thing at the time, and just the experience of being on an international trip with like those riders and traveling. Like, I think it was like the second time I'd been on an airplane in my life. You know, I went to BCIT for 2 years for film school, but I went to Burton Snowboards for film school for like a decade. So that's where I learned, like, you know, the stuff that mattered for shooting on snow, for sure.
Mm-hmm. You had just said that the people that you knew weren't getting asked for these kinds of jobs. What do you think it was in your work or your personality that ultimately led to you having this breakthrough?
I don't know. I'm thinking of the guys, you know, like, I mean, I was doing it like my life depended on it, maybe. Like, I didn't have my plan B was like, maybe I would go work like television news, and like, I'll tell you, my plan B was that I was going to move to Terrace, BC. I was going to buy a season's pass at Shames Mountain. I was going to work at the TV station up there, and I was going to go snowboarding as much as possible. And that would have been a pretty cool plan B had, like, you know, filming snowboarding not worked out and be like a snowboard bum. But yeah, I think a lot of maybe the other guys that were in it, just, you know, they were doing it as like more of a side project or something like that. Maybe I can't really speak to them exactly, but I mean, fast forward 21 years later, like, there's maybe like, I don't know how many people out of that original crew are still doing it, you know, like probably not too many, maybe like 2.
Wow, that's crazy, man. That's so key though, is I think if you're going into anything in life, not just photography, but absolutely anything in life, I think it's committing to it wholeheartedly. If you want it bad enough, realizing that you can't say within yourself, okay, well, I have a backup plan if this just doesn't work out. And I mean, of course, yes, you did have other ideas of what would be possible, but nonetheless, you're like, this was your original goal, is like, this is where I want to go. This is the big time of like what I want with my life. And I think a lot of people need to commit with the reality in their mind saying, there's no plan B. There's no plan B, that I'm going to exit this and I need to go full at it.
Yeah, no, for sure. There was one talk, my mom was like, I was like 13, I was in high school, and she was like, what do you want to do? And I was like, what do you mean? I get a choice? Like, I thought you guys were just going to send me to like the community college to be like a welder or like a plumber. Like, I didn't think I was going to get to go to Vancouver to go to school. I didn't think that was in the cards for me, you know? So when she's like, yeah, no, you can pick what you want to do. And I was like, oh, okay, well, you know, I like those MacDog videos and I see a lot of names in the credits. I'd love to be a snowboard filmer. And she's like, you sure you don't want to do that as like a hobby? And I was like, no, like, I want to do it for real. And she's like, well, if you want to do it for real, you got to go to school for it. So that was probably why I went to school, because I had to go to school to be able to do it. And yeah, and maybe it sets the mentality for like, all right, this is my course and I'm gonna just try to execute this as as well as I can, So I spent about as much time at school as I did at Mount Seymour on like night riding on the weekends and meeting all the guys up there. And that was probably the other half of it, was just networking. I'm actually like super shy and introverted in most situations, but if I'm on snow or in the mountains or on my snowmobile, I'm pretty outgoing, I guess, because it's like my comfortable place, I guess. I don't know. I'm going down to the States tomorrow, and I'm gonna go take photos one day in West Yellowstone, and then I'm gonna go down to Jackson as more of like a vacation and just like hang out. And I went last year for work and it was really fun, but more of a vacation this year and just go watch the races and see how people are setting up the sleds. And I'm into that sort of stuff now. So yeah, that's more of just like a networking in 2023 for me, is going to the Jackson Hole Hill Climb. Not just Mount Seymour at nighttime. Yeah.
Yeah, totally. I love the transformation from 13 to now full-time, go on vacation. Like this is what you love to surround yourself with. It's so interesting that at 13, a lot of young people now feel as though they don't have a choice, as though their parents want them to play it safe. But that's so powerful. I love the reality of now I have a choice. I have options. It's amazing how that opened up your world.
Yeah, like I've always assumed certain things, and I just assumed that like, I was probably gonna fuse metal or like work on like pipes and stuff or something like that. Because I grew up on Vancouver Island, and we were going to school. We were always told like there's gonna be a lot of need for nurses and a lot of need for people in the trades. Maybe don't go into the arts so much or whatever. But I would say that like my line of work is a little bit more tradesy than I went to a trade school basically. So, but definitely an art component to it. They didn't really teach us much like art stuff or anything. They taught you how to frame up a shot a little bit, but they kind of left the creativity up to us. It was very much like, this is how a camera works, this is how the Avid works, this is how editing linear deck to deck like for TV news works, and which is like, I'm pretty sure that's very obsolete for like a long time now. But the opportunities that have kind of come up over the years and just trying to take advantage of them, that's half the fun, I think, is just seeing what pops up and trying to make the most of it. I got a couple guys, when they call me to go riding, like as long as I'm not working, if they call me to go ride, I do not say no. I like have to go on a ride with them, like, because they go to the cool spots and they know where to go and that sort of thing. So a couple of the old boys.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's fun.
That's awesome. That's great. So for somebody that is looking to either pursue adventure sports or action sports, that style of photography, what's one way that you feel somebody would be able to start to get their work noticed?
I think just to be successful in any realm, whether it's action sports or it could be like architectural photography or any of these niches, I think you really just need to immerse yourself in the scene, like for me, it's been snowboarding, and then through snowboarding, I needed to buy a snowmobile. So then I to make my work easier, I had to get capable of riding the snowmobile, and then I found out the snowmobile was really fun. So then I got into that. I think for anyone, like I've never shot mountain biking, or I have a little bit, but like I'm not a mountain biker, so it's hard for me. I have buddies that are into it that are awesome, and I'd like to get into it. It seems like a fun thing to do. There's lots of colors, there's dust, you have more time to set up. You got more colors than like white, blue, and green, and so that's intriguing to me. But I feel like I need to buy a mountain bike and go mountain biking and understand the style before I could really like be like a legit mountain bike shooter, And there's already so many good mountain bike shooters around here. But just as an example, I guess, yeah, like I think if you want to get into some sort of type of production, you just have to like kind of love it, and then it'll become pretty easy. Like snowmobiling just came about because I didn't want to have that like gut feeling filming snowboarding that I couldn't get out of like the lake with the big steep hill or the rutted out single track or whatever. So it was really just a means to be able to enjoy my days, was to like put a little bit of time into it and try to ride more to get better.
Yeah, I like that. Just immersing yourself. Yeah. What is your setup that you use in order to capture those quick moments? Because sometimes when it comes down to action, adventure, it's really hard to get those moments exactly when you want them. So what kind of setup are you using in order to be really quick on the camera.
Yeah, that's very key to my process for sure. Do I have it here? I basically have it all right here. I'll have to send you a photo of like just my office and it's relatively organized, but I am packing for a trip, so it's pretty crazy. But this is actually Nadia's X100V, and I borrow it all the time. When they come off back order, I'll buy another one of these because these are awesome. I keep that in a pocket, usually in my jacket pocket, because it's really small. I can unzip it, pull it out really quick, get a snapshot. And then for like the bigger cameras, I'll just run it in this kind of chest bag, so it just connects to the chest strap on the backpack and then unzips, and you can put a camera with like a 70 to 200. So that's just like the two kind of quick draw setups. I wrecked a lot of nice coats by putting too big of a camera in like the chest pocket of like, nice Burton coats and stuff over the years. So I've kind of switched to the chest pack, and then if I'm filming, if I need to film like that style, I'll just put a variable ND on the front of the camera, and then I'm able to like kind of just pull it out quickly and get the shot and then ram it back in there. And maybe I'll have like a little chamois so I can make sure that the lens is kind of clean, but like just super run and gun. I learned like a lot of stuff from working with all the Burton like staff photographers over the years, because a lot of times I'd be the only main shooter, but I was always working with like a highly experienced photographer, and they'd pull out the big Canon out of their backpack and take their shots. But it wasn't until the later years where everyone started packing like the small camera and to get those kind of in between moments. And I kind of always had one just as a hobby, and one of the days Jeff Curtis was like, "Hey Aaron, like if you have any good shots from your small camera, I notice you always have it out, just send them to me and we'll submit them to the story or whatever." And I don't think they used any of them, but just the idea that like I had the camera out and it was ready all the time, I think is key. And even for like, even when I'm shooting like motion stuff, having a rig that you're okay with setting up, getting a quick shot and putting it away. You're not like putting the rails on and then putting the monitor on. You can like pull it out like a video camera, click it into the tripod or hand hold it or whatever and get the shot. That's nice, because the worst thing is when someone asks you to shoot something but you're just so like over pulling the camera out and doing so many setups that it's a little bit wearing or taxing or whatever, especially if it's really cold out or really wet out or one of those kinds of things where you're just like, oh, like again, I gotta pull this thing out. I came from the early Red days where like we didn't have quick setups and it took like 15 minutes to build the camera. It was actually on my first time I did a Skidoo job, and I was kind of shadowing the photographer, and I was so slow at setting up because I didn't have the camera on rails and I had to build it every time, and I was missing so many shots or potential shots. Just having it rigged up with lots of pads in the backpack so that you can just kind of pull it out and it's ready to go. Maybe you're swapping a lens from time to time, but that's definitely just being ready to shoot anything, I think is definitely the biggest key. If I don't have a camera on my chest or in my pocket, I feel weird, like it feels wrong or something like that. I have the camera right here in the bag because I was maybe gonna shoot today. It's just like on rails on the mount. It's got a battery. Like the screen's folded down. The only thing I do is flip the switch and then flip the switch on the monitor, and then it's good to go. And yeah, I've probably been riding like with camera on rails probably since after my first year. The first year we got the Reds in on 2012. We were probably building them every day, and then 2013 we were like, all right, how do we streamline this?
Yeah, that's everything, right? It's just streamlining the process, because everything's so fast and happening so fast.
Oh, totally, yeah. I mean, even for a photo, sometimes I'll be riding along the glacier and I'll stop and I'll pull the camera out and I'll take the photo and I'll put the camera back in the chest pack and I'll look, and the guys are a kilometer down the glacier. So now I gotta catch back up to them. Always playing like leapfrog, and I don't know. I love that. I love like getting in front of the crew and seeing a little patch of light and then pulling out the camera and just hoping that they kind of go through that patch or whatever. For sure. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes you hit them on the radio and go, hey guys, just go a little bit to the left and do a little slash over there, whatever it might be.
Yeah, just for people that are listening, the bag that Aaron was referring to is the f-stop top loader. I will tag that in the show notes just for you guys to go check that out if you guys are interested. It's definitely something that I've seen Aaron talk about previously, and it's something that I'm going to be picking up for my setup shooting all summer. I just found that it was super necessary to have something like that, and I think I would definitely recommend something like that for anybody who is shooting high-pace action or is out in the backcountry adventuring. I think it's absolutely needed
probably like $70 or something. Like best $70 you could ever spend. It's like padded. Like for sure I've dropped a camera inside that onto the running board and it's been fine. Like those things are awesome. I probably need to have like a backup one or something. Being ready and having like good communication with your crew. I'm insane with radios. Like I still haven't found the best solution for radios in the backcountry yet, but just letting people know where you're at and when you're ready, or just trying to get in front of the action and predicting it is always fun.
Yeah, I think that's some really great advice for sure.
It's so simple. Like when it's like, how do you get these? I'm like, well, I just have a camera with me like 97% of the time, like of my life probably. Like if a bear runs out, I'll be like, and then like I'm in burst mode too, and it's just like, and I used to shoot a lot of aperture priority, but I do shoot mostly in manual now. But aperture priority was sweet because it's, you know, you just have your f-stop set and let the camera do the rest of the work. Auto ISO is kind of nice. Because you know the camera knows the ISO. It's just sometimes when you're focusing, maybe the autofocus will trip out, like based on exposure, in my findings. This is a little bit off topic, but
yeah, for sure. I think that there's a lot of people, if I would have asked questions, that I always get questions on what are your settings, or what do you like to shoot and stuff like that. So I think it's just good to throw that in for the people that are curious.
Yeah, no, for sure. Probably everything until the last like 2 years was all aperture priority stuff, and like, you know, usually glued pretty wide open, to be honest with you. A stopper down now from time to time. I think about it for like scenic shots. You don't always want to be at like 1.4 or 2.8 if you're shooting like really far away. But then again, like I don't necessarily love like ultra crispy like sharp images, like, but that's just my preference. Like, I don't know, I grew up shooting film on a Bolex, and it sure as hell wasn't sharp. Like it had different tones and a vibe to it, and that's what I like.
Yeah, I was gonna say, because you're shooting film, you're so used to finding like it's so textured.
Yeah, totally. Like I remember like when we were shooting 16, like we had like probably maybe like 3 to 6 different post houses in Vancouver that did like film transfers, and that was the cool part about it, was that Kevin would let us come down to Vancouver and we'd watch all of our film in the booth and telecine or whatever, and it was you could learn so much. And I'd ask the colorist, I'd be like, hey, can you show me what it looks like without any of your adjustments? And he takes off all the color, and it's just like this kind of brown mess, like it's like really gross image. I was like, so is everything consistent? He's like, no, your exposures are pretty all over the map. And I was like, oh yeah. I was bracketing a bit, I guess, maybe. I had no clue what I was doing. I was guessing everything. I was just like sunny 16, you know, or whatever. But it was cool to be able to see the images and seeing how they could change them, and then shooting different film. Like I would shoot a bunch of reversal film and get it cross processed, because I remember like photographers in that era were doing it because they were probably getting bored, just trying to kind of in my digital work trying to emulate the old snowboard movie look. I just remember seeing a lot of shady landings being blue, not like dark gray, and that's just color balance, right? So, and then film has such a nice kind of type of color, and you can push it really far that you definitely couldn't do it digital at the time. So yeah, that's kind of stuck with me, and I would say that anyone that's shooting that's in my age would probably say the same kind of thing. Like we like a little bit of grain, and we don't need everything being like razor sharp, but different tools for different jobs too. Like I have like the Canon R stuff, and those cameras are super sharp and really quick autofocus, and they definitely get the job done. But if it were up to me, I would just shoot my XH2S and the X100 just with like the two. I bring two lenses. I have a 16 and a 56, so it's like a 24 and an 85. I have a 35 too, which is like a 50 because it's APS-C. But
okay.
I love like, it's funny because for sports, like you totally need zoom lenses.
Oh yeah.
Whereas for like just to be, I don't know, like flexible and being able to guess where someone's gonna go. Whereas for shooting stills, I really like shooting on primes because it makes you kind of walk around and you're more limited and it's more of a challenge. And I like that kind of aspect. I think the look of the high-speed primes look really nice on the Fuji cameras too. They just have a bit more character than like a super fast modern Canon zoom or whatever. That's what's fun, is like you can change your look based on just like trying a new set of lenses or a different camera body or a different process, or you get bored of one thing, you switch over to the other. Like I got a bunch of old film cameras that like I shoot like once every like 5 years, and I get really excited about them, and then they sit on the shelf for another 5 years, and then I get really excited about them. And yeah, that's kind of like half the fun.
Yeah, exactly. It's cool how your process can evolve throughout the years, and just how you can grow throughout photography. It's kind of a never-ending journey that you continue to go on and rediscover yourself, your passion through different gear, how it makes you work different, and how it allows you to edit different. It's so fascinating.
Oh no, totally. And I find that like just as people's styles change, and there's definitely popular looks and stuff that come and go, and that keeps it fresh and exciting. I don't know, like I remember like 15 years ago, like a couple people were shooting video with tilt shifts on like Canon 5Ds, and then I didn't see it again for like a really long time, or ever since maybe. Or just how like film has like kind of come back, like Vans does all like their snowboard videos in 16, and they got like a partnership with Kodak, and that's really cool. You know, I would be absolutely terrified if I had to rely on Arri S or a Bolex SB or whatever to frame and compose a shot in 2013 with no digi backup. But there's a lot of guys that can do it really well. You know, changing film with like the pulling your jacket over your head and every 3 minutes. Like, we got it pretty good now with like 7-inch monitors, and like you're able to review it for style, and you can crop in, and things are pretty flexible now. But yeah, it's just a different process going back to the film stuff. And I wish I had a Super 16 Bolex, and I wish I still had it, but I sold it to get money to buy a 2011 Skidoo E-Tech at the time, which was probably more important. So I can always buy one later down the road, but they've gone up in price. So
oh really?
Yeah, they have. They went really down in price after I sold mine, and then they're back up to like, I don't know, a couple grand or something like that. Nothing crazy, but
Okay, so just kind of moving on to, I guess, a different question. One thing that I had in mind was, with you continuously shooting snowboarding and snowmobiling, how do you continue to create fresh perspective?
I think as far as perspective goes on snowboarding, because I've been doing it for a lot longer, we've always been brainwashed to have to document the takeoff, the airtime, and the landing, like just full like document style, which really takes away from creativity. So I've just been trying to not do that. If I look at a feature and I go, how do I want to shoot this? The light, like I did this like 2 days ago. There's this one feature Darcy Sharp found, and from the bottom it looked like it was all front lit, looked terrible. I drove up into the sun, honestly, just to get warm, and I looked at it from that angle where he was sitting, and I was like, oh, that looks sick from here. It has like cool mountain backdrop. It's like we got shadows, we got light, we got mountains, and it's clean, it's all natural. He's just gonna roll into it and do a trick off of it. Like if I shoot it from here, I'm not gonna get the landing. But I was like, Darcy, what trick are you gonna try? He's like, oh no, back 3. And I was like, well, you're a pretty good snowboarder. If you don't land the back 3, who cares really? Or like, I'm just gonna give you the benefit of the doubt that you could back 3 that, and I'm not gonna sacrifice the angle to get you landing and riding out. I'm just going to shoot this as basically a photograph. I'm going to lock it off. You're going to ride in, you're going to back 3 it, and you're going to land at the bottom of the frame. And that opens up so many more potentials. It's basically like photography, because you don't need to show landings in photos. Whereas in video, we've always been told, at least the guys I've worked with, and I think most people would agree, that you need a landing. Unless someone's doing something that's like never been done before, they're going to do like some sort of triple cork or some sort of crazy maneuver. You definitely want to show it, and maybe you have to give up your beautiful artistic lighting to do so. I was always such a fan of snowboarding, and I just loved shooting it. So at first I probably didn't take as much care in maybe like light direction and like where to shoot things from. I just wanted to document it and watch the trick as it happened, because I was like hyped on it and just seeing people do cool. And whereas now I'm like looking at it going like, hey, you know, where does it look the biggest from? But then we're also, what's the most photographic angle for this at the same time? Just trying to either, you know, split the difference between those two, or maybe they align perfectly where the nice light is exactly where the step down looks the biggest. And it's hard because a lot of times, like, you know, the good angle doesn't exist, or there's not a perfect valley across the way to shoot across from. You're down below, or you're looking up, or, you know, whatever it might be. Maybe you got there too late in the day and something's shaded. So these are just like kind kind of classic mountain scenarios. Yeah, I think just giving up on the mandatory, like, gotta get the landing angle or have to show the ride in or whatever. Just trying to make it look rad and it, you know, look like a cool feature that people would want to hit or dream of hitting is always rad too.
Yeah, I like that. I like that perspective. Yeah, that's really cool.
I learned it from motorsports. I remember I was setting up for something and Anthony Vitale was the DP on the shoot, and I was like, "What about here?" He's like, "Well, you don't need to get the landing." I was like, "What do you mean?" He's like, "Well, if he doesn't ride out of this, he's gonna get like really hurt. Like he's gonna land it. It's just like." You don't need to show the landing in moto is what I was told, basically, at least for this situation. Like it was like maybe it was a basic trick over a large feature, and it was, you know, pretty like Chris was gonna land it regardless, so we didn't have to shoot that. And I was like, oh, okay, cool, like that's good to know. I get to shoot like the beauty angle with the nice light and the guy flying through the air, and he just disappears over the knoll, and we just go, of course he landed, you know. So yeah, I don't know, like there's been so many shots over the years that have hit the cutting room floor because maybe we showed too much, but like a beautiful cut shot, I think, or a shot that doesn't have a landing isn't the end of the world. I like shooting like moments too. Like I said, like how like being a BTS shooter is like my dream now. Like being a B camera guy that has absolute creative control would be sick, where they're just like, you do your thing and go get some stuff, and then we'll have the other guys shoot like the master shots, you know, and you get to get weird, you know, you can take chances and stuff, because with a lot of our shooting, yeah, there's not a lot of room for error. You have to execute the shot and get it good, you know, and for that to happen, you usually want the rider at the top of the frame, and then coming down to the bottom of the frame, you got to pan it and time it well, but you're always leaving a little bit of a buffer in case they go too high or go too low, or they go more left or more right. So that really puts a damper on creativity. And so just, you know, the more cameras you have, the more redundancy you have, and the more creative you can be. If you're just one dude, then you're just getting it. But if you got more cameras, then it's nice to play with it and get a bit more experimental.
That's so true. That's so true. So if you could go back to the start of your career and change one thing that would help you to fast track your career and getting to possibly where you are now, or maybe the place that you were even 5 years ago or 10 years ago in your career, to be at that point, what would be that one thing that you would change?
I don't know if I would change anything that I necessarily did to fast track. I really had a fast track from going from a kid from film school to working for a big company. Like I definitely was fast tracked in that, but the one thing I wish I did a little bit more was seek out other work outside of snowboarding. Like I got pretty comfortable when I worked for Burton. You know, all my bills were paid every month, and yeah, I was just like I was just content with that job. And then, you know, in the certain months, like you know, maybe in like October, we wouldn't really be doing much, but I'd still be getting paid my salary or whatever. You know, maybe reaching out into like trying to get into like mountain biking or into those other sports would have been better to do. But once I went freelance, I definitely like kind of cranked up like the, I don't know, like hustle mentality a little bit more, where you're like seeking out clients and you're asking people if they want to do stuff. And that was hard for me because I came from such a, you know, I just got sent on projects all the time. I didn't have to drum any up on my own. I think that would be the one thing I probably wish I would have done more of, was just trying to branch out more. And because I'm definitely known as a snow guy, and it would be good to be a bit more of an all-round guy maybe. Then again, I think if you can shoot people flying through the air in the snow, most other things come pretty easy after that, because it's kind of hard. So that's what's cool about shooting, is it's like it's never the same thing. I get asked like, what do you do in the summertime? And I'm always just like, I do the most random different stuff all the time, from like you know, shooting a binding ratchet to going to, you know, Chile or something, to, you know, taking photos, to, yeah, it's different every year, and I have a hard time like remembering what it is at this point now, like, because they're always so different. I do a lot of post work too, so like, it's nice having that balance when you go from like being outdoors for like 150 days to like your other 150 days or 100 days or behind a computer, like actually making something that you know, work so hard on. So it's cool seeing production like full circle too. That was a bit of a rant.
Yeah, no, that's a great answer. Yeah, I think that's extremely crucial. No, I agree.
Having the balance is key. I think, yeah, if you just sat on a computer and only edited, I know, and I have a good friend that does that. At least for me, I'd want to get outside at a certain point. And then being outside, like, I joke around, like, it hasn't happened to me yet, but usually around the end of April, you're usually like getting pretty sunburnt. I'm actually pretty sunburnt right now. And you're looking forward to like the change of the season, because, you've been on snow for so long and things are falling apart and you're sore and that sort of thing. But you're looking forward to like, okay, putting all the pieces of the puzzle together. And, whether that's like, a feature-length action movie, or for me, it's like I make like little GoPro videos and like little Instagram slides, and that's my like little creative outlet for myself, and a little bit of like marketing, I guess, in the same kind of way. Yeah, that was off topic. Could like hit me with another one.
No, that was a great answer. That was an awesome answer. So for those who haven't been on set before, what is one thing that would help to calm somebody's nerves with these high-paced environments? Because action sports photography is extremely high-paced. Like you said, you really only have one chance sometimes to get the shot that you need to get. What is one thing that somebody could do to kind of calm their nerves and revert back to kind of the knowledge in which they have?
I'm trying to think, like honestly, like if I'm working on snow, I'm super comfortable because I'm spent more time on it than anyone else. So that's just second nature. That's every day. Like, I'd be a fish out of water in Vancouver trying to find parking, to go into like a movie studio, or like that sort of thing. Like, I don't know. I think the biggest thing to calm your nerves is just being prepared. In the snow, for me, it's just making sure all my batteries are charged and my radio works, and I have my inReach in case something goes wrong, or the cards have all been backed up, and everything's just kind of ready to go. And when you do it 100 times a year, it becomes second nature. You don't need to do a checklist. You just go and you go do it every day. Whereas where you're gearing up for maybe a big one-off kind of project, yeah, I think just being prepared is the biggest kind of cheat code to that, for sure.
I'm going to highlight this again because I think that was an extremely good point. I'm just going to sum this up here. So practice so much that you're prepared. That's basically, knowing exactly what you're doing and the sports in which you're shooting. Being so practiced in what you are shooting is how you're going to be prepared.
Yeah, and I've thought about it before. It's not like I've ever just sat in my room with like the zoom lens and like practice like going like this on the barrel. I just went out and shot. If you're not prepared with a piece of gear or something, like, yeah, go do a little test shoot for sure. Like, yeah, I think test shoots are super important, and I probably don't do enough of them. But I mean, my kit doesn't really change too much from day to day. I'm a pretty standard issue tripod guy, handheld or whatever, but I'm not busting out tons of tech or anything like that. But yeah, and then I mean, having the right help on a project too, having the right guys around to lend a hand, I think is always nice. And that really takes the pressure off of, if I have a huge shot list or something like that, I just have my producer and my assistant, and they got the list, and they go, all right, Aaron, you got to shoot that shock next. And I go and I shoot it, and I go, okay, cool, what's next? And he goes, the other shock. And I go, okay, what's next? And he goes, the center shock. And I go, okay, is the rear shock next? He goes, yes. And I go, okay, and I get that shot too. And we just keep going down the list. And whereas, like, if you're constantly referencing stuff and then having to be creative, and you're worried about like keeping track of things, especially after maybe not sleeping overly much, things get a little bit weird. But organization, being prepared, and then being able to kind of roll with the punches a little bit too. Like, if I forgot my fisheye one day or something and I really needed to get a fisheye shot, there's no way to really replicate that. Like, you're kind of but that would be one of the kind of situations that I would find myself in, like, I only brought the zoom. But I think I'm going over this too much. I think it's just straight up being prepared is the biggest key.
Mm-hmm. No, for sure. Yeah, I think that's some great highlight points. So for those people that are looking at your work and maybe trying to grab inspiration from your work, what is one of the lenses that you absolutely love shooting with?
I've really based my action career around shooting with cine lens. Like, the one I have is super old, and it would be nice to update it. But it's a 25 to 250 ingenue. It's a PL mount lens from probably the 70s. It's really old, 35 millimeter. I used to have a similar one for my 16. It would have been a 12 to 120. They have like a soft look to them, but the main thing is just the flexibility and being able to zoom in or zoom out really quickly. I find like shooting on like a photo lens for video to be super limiting for sports. It's great for shooting product and you want to keep things sharp and have a lot of like flexibility in framing without switching lenses, but it's hard to shoot with them. The zoom is too stiff and the focus isn't precise enough, you know? I think the cine zoom lenses for sports are one of the biggest kind of hacks you could use to be able to get shots where there is that bit of wiggle room when shooting action. Just like a simple tilt up with like a little spin of the lens will keep the rider in the frame. We're usually shooting slow motion and it usually looks pretty smooth where and like the whole lens and stuff is like, you know, locked into the rails and it's all one unit. There's no wobble from the lens mount or anything like that. So that's where I feel the most comfortable is shooting with a rig like that. I'd love to get like a Fujinon like 80 to 300 and then the accompanying like wide zoom or whatever, 19 to 90. I just gotta save up a little bit more. It's really hard when you gotta buy like a new sled every year and then the cameras update every couple years. Whereas if you do buy a nice lens, it does last forever. I've gotten, I don't know, 12 years out of this one, I think. There are some other options too. I'm going way too far in this lens rant here. Yeah, man, honestly, like I told, who was it? Sean Lucy. He films with Austin Sweeten. He hit me up last year and he's like, yo, what do you have any recommendations for like lenses? And I said, hell yeah, man, you got to get yourself Ingenue 25 to 250. Mine's called the T2, even though it's like a T3.9. It's like version 2. Version 3 is called the HP. And then there's the HR, and the HR came out in the 90s, and it's just like a workhorse. They're basically old versions of what's called like the Optimo 25 to 250, which is those are like 40 grand. So like, you know, if I won the lottery, I'd have a couple of those. Optimo or the Fuji equivalent. Yeah, Fujinon equivalent.
Screw the Arri Alexa. I'm going for the friggin' lens here.
Yeah, I mean, well, that's the thing is what's interesting with the shooting now is everything's going like larger format too, right? So all these lenses are Super 35, so the prices of them were going down a bit, but maybe with Arri coming out with that Super 35 camera, not everyone's gonna go like VistaVision or large format digital. I like Super 35 is a wicked format for filming like action because I don't know, I shoot most of my stuff at like f8, f11 outside, and you have people coming at you really quick, and I don't have an AC. I've never had an AC, so I'm like zooming out, and then changing my hand to the focus ring, you know. So yeah, it's easy to operate these with one hand, and you're not worried about like razor thin depth of field. And not that you would have to. You could shoot a full frame setup like at shallower stops, but just the nature of the larger sensor would be trickier for focus. But maybe in the future, we'll just be all shooting autofocus. I don't know.
Maybe. You never know. It's getting wild now. Oh man, it is getting wild. But no, that's cool. That's really cool. I love the deep dive on that. That was awesome. So just to kind of wrap things up here, where would you like to see yourself within the next 4 to 5 years?
4 to 5 years from now, where would I like to see myself? I don't know. I just like to work on some interesting projects and maybe a different capacity, maybe in a larger role, maybe in a BTS role.
Hit him up. Somebody hit this guy up.
Yeah, I just want to keep progressing, and I love snowmobiling, and that's kind of half the fun right now is just the sleds are getting so good and we're able to go to such cool places, and that's definitely my passion. You know, got a lot of roots in snowboarding. I'd like to work on a big snowboard movie. I feel like I got a good skill set that could help the right production company out. Just I miss making larger sized films with highly talented crew and riders. We did that at Burton back in the day, and those were definitely my favorite years. And then just keep exploring, going on cool rides with new people. And for me, my motivation is I love like just good team camaraderie and going out there and working hard, and then eating some wings and drinking some beer. It's a very simple man here, I tell you.
No, it's great. It's great because, I mean, you got to enjoy today. You got to enjoy the moments that you're going through. And I know it's such a loaded question, 4 or 5 years, but I just love to pick people's brains. And like, I mean, just even hearing about your desire to do more movie things, like I think that's so fascinating. And I hope to see you produce something like that.
Yeah, like the two worlds I work in are so different. Like snowmobiling is so adventure based, and it's quite easy to get shots in that realm, I think, compared to like snowboarding where it has to be like perfect snow, perfect conditions. I'd love to do a huge traverse, like almost like ski touring style traverse on a snowmobile, like a couple 100 kilometers, gas drops, tents, that sort of thing. Kind of like a survival kind of setup. I don't know.
That'd be sick.
Hopefully you make it and you don't die. And then on the other side of it, I'd like to like just do some like high level snowboard production, Alaska, or just do BC properly, you know. But it all comes down to having like healthy budgets and good weather, but lots of drive left and to shoot some high level snowboarding. Like just watching like natural selection in those contests lately, I've been getting like pretty fired up. Like, man, like guys are riding so good, and just the level of riding and terrain is really exciting right now. Like free riding, technical backcountry freestyle is alive and well right now, so that's really cool. But you're also talking to the guy that like doesn't like, I don't plan my life more than like 24 hours in advance. Like I'm gonna get off this call, I'm gonna fold some laundry, I'm gonna go pick up my sled in a couple hours, and like I might start driving south, like just to get down to Jackson to watch the vintage class ride, because I got some buddies that are racing that class. I don't want to see it. Yeah, I fly by the seat of my pants. Like I'm really good at working with pretty limited notice. I don't really plan too far in advance. I'm just trying to think if I could answer that any better. But anytime anyone asks me, I live my life in around the winter season and seasons. Try to make the best out of everyone and trying to keep doing better. Not trying to go backwards by any means. Yeah, and I think the cool thing, it's rad to make images, and you know, I have some like favorite stuff from like my early days, and sometimes those are like hard to recreate, you know, because it was just at like a different time in your career or a location that you don't get to go to anymore. I can only speak to like what I'm inspired by, and that's kind of like going on trips, snow trips with my family, meeting new people, eating different food. I think it's all like a collective thing, and just sharing cool experiences and being excited about mountain culture and documenting. Yeah, I don't know why I grew up playing ice hockey, and then I found snowboarding, and it completely changed my life. I'll always probably be in the mountains, and probably I can't picture not having cameras or doing this. I'm kind of in it for the long haul.
That's awesome. Yeah, I think just like doing the things that light you up the most, right?
Yeah.
Just being where your passions lie.
Oh yeah. Like yeah, just having like good creative outlets. I think that's really healthy, and you know, getting outside is amazing. Like it's just like one of those things I take for granted. It's a part of my job, is that I get to go outside and see beautiful places, and there's so many perks to the job when you get to, you know, go outside, work in the mountains, and then, you know, sure, you got to put in some hours behind the keyboard, but that's a part of the process of making things, and I enjoy that too. I enjoy like switching between different LUTs and applying different types of grain, and then hitting the export button and then pushing back and watching it and seeing if it's complete dog shit or if I'm okay with it. So
Fall part of the journey, the ups and the downs.
Oh yeah.
But it sounds like you're still loving the journey just as much as when you started. So.
Oh dude, totally. Yeah. Like, you know, like, and it just changes. Like when I was 19, I just wanted to get my snowmobile, and then I still am looking forward to my next year's snowmobile. Like the camera gear has gotten so much better and is so fun to work with, and the images are, if I look at like old stuff off my HVX 200, I'm like, oh man, I can't even put that in an Instagram thing. It's not the right shape anymore. It's too low res. Yeah, we live in a cool time for technology, and we're still allowed to do stuff. We're still allowed to explore on snowmobiles and without too many rules and that sort of thing. So that's really nice.
Yeah, thank you, Aaron, so much for sitting down and having this conversation. It was so enlightening just to hear a different perspective on how you went through your journey, how you have grown as a photographer, as a filmmaker. It's just so cool to get to hear different perspectives.
Oh, my pleasure. I'm glad that you could withstand my obscure rants about all things zoom lenses and film school and sled. Yeah, man. Like I think it's so rad to chat with other creatives, and I listen to as many film and photo podcasts as I can, and every time I come home, I'm usually like fired up to like get on the computer or get behind the camera and actually make something. So, and just to network more with other creative types. I think it's the best, and I'm always trying to like link up with like new dudes in town here. The Squamish, where I live, has potentially more outdoor cities and photographers per capita than like maybe anywhere in North America. I think like there's so many shooters here, so and I only know a few of them so far. So yeah, it's rad to chat with you, and I hope that I don't know, my little story can inspire someone to get outside and hit buttons on a camera or grab the throttle of a snowmobile and or snowboard.